It was late afternoon on a lonely stretch of highway, the kind of road that stretched for miles with no sign of life, but the whisper of wind through the grass and the steady hum of distant traffic. The sun was sinking low, bleeding its last golden rays across the asphalt. That's when his car, a sleek black Aston Martin that probably cost more than most people made in a year, came to a sputtering halt. The engine coughed once, twice, and then went completely dead. The man inside, Nathaniel Cross, a millionaire tech investor, known for his ruthless efficiency and quiet arrogance, slammed his hand against the steering wheel. He cursed under his breath, tapping at his phone for a signal. Nothing. The digital bars taunted him, empty and useless. The nearest town was 15 miles away. For a man who'd spent his life surrounded by chauffeurs, luxury, and people paid to solve his problems, being alone on a dusty back road was an unfamiliar kind of helplessness. Then, out of nowhere, he heard the distant rattle of an engine. He turned his head, squinting against the glare of the sun. A rusted old pickup truck rolled into view, slowing as it approached his stranded car. Behind the wheel was a woman, mid-30s, dark skin glowing under the amber light, her hair tied back with a patterned scarf. She wore work overalls, her hands and arms streaked with oil. She looked like someone who worked with her hands, someone used to solving real problems, the kind he could only pay others to fix. The truck pulled over to the shoulder. She stepped out, dusting her palms against her jeans, and called out, "Need a hand?" Her voice was firm but kind, the sort of tone that didn't ask for permission. It offered help. Nathaniel hesitated. He wasn't used to accepting help, least of all from strangers. But his pride wouldn't start the engine. He stepped out, adjusting his cufflinks like a man trying to maintain control of a situation long since lost. "The car just died," he said, his voice clipped. "No signal out here." She gave him a half-smile, glancing at the gleaming vehicle. "Guess even fancy cars break down sometimes." "Pop the hood." He blinked, momentarily taken aback by how easily she took charge. But he did as told. She leaned in, squinting at the engine. "Looks like you've got a busted fuel pump," she said after a moment, reaching into her toolbox. "Lucky for you, I've got one that'll fit. Won't be perfect, but it'll get you to town." Nathaniel studied her as she worked, the grease under her nails, the steady rhythm of her movements, the confidence that came from knowing exactly what she was doing. It fascinated him. He couldn't remember the last time someone had spoken to him without fear or flattery. He tried making conversation. "You fix cars for a living?" "Among other things," she said without looking up. "I run a small garage down in Stone Creek. My father taught me everything I know." There was something about the way she said it, pride mixed with nostalgia. It stirred something in him, something he didn't recognize. For years he'd lived surrounded by people chasing his money, his signature, his approval. But this woman, whoever she was, didn't seem to care who he was at all. After a while, she straightened up, wiping her hands with a rag. "Try it now." He got behind the wheel and turned the key. The engine roared to life, smooth and steady. Relief washed over him, followed by a strange warmth. Gratitude, maybe, though it felt foreign on his tongue. He stepped out again. "You're a lifesaver," he said. She shrugged. "Just doing what needed to be done." He reached for his wallet, but she raised a hand before he could open it. "Keep it," she said firmly. "I didn't stop for money." That stunned him. In his world, everything came with a price tag. Then why stop at all? She smiled softly, her eyes distant for a moment. "Because once upon a time I was stranded on a road just like this, and someone helped me when they didn't have to." There was a silence that stretched between them, filled with the fading light and the soft hum of the running car. That's when he noticed the ring, a simple silver band on her left hand. It caught the sunlight and gleamed, small but significant. Something about it made him pause. "Your husband must be lucky," he said without thinking. For the first time her face changed. The easy smile faltered, replaced by something sad, something heavy. "He was," she said quietly. "Was?" Nathaniel asked, his voice gentler now. She took a slow breath, looking at the horizon instead of him. "He died 3 years ago." "Car accident?" "On this same highway, actually." Nathaniel's chest tightened. The irony was bitter. She'd stopped to help a stranger in the same place where she'd lost the person she loved. He didn't know what to say. "I'm sorry," he said finally. She nodded. "Don't be. I learned something from it. You can't control what life takes from you. You can only decide what you'll give back. Something in those words settled deep in him. Nathaniel Cross, the man who measured everything in profit and loss, found himself speechless in front of a woman who had nothing, yet somehow had everything that mattered. As the last light faded, he glanced at his car, then back at her. "You shouldn't be out here alone this late," he said. "It's not safe." She smiled again, the sadness softening. "I'll be fine. I've seen worse nights," he hesitated. "At least let me drive you back to town." She shook her head. "Appreciate it, but I've got one more stop to make. Someone's waiting on me." She started toward her truck, tossing the rag into the passenger seat. He wanted to ask more about her life, the quiet strength that seemed to carry her through everything. But the words stayed stuck in his throat. Instead, he said the only thing that felt right. "Thank you." She looked back one last time, the wind catching the ends of her scarf. "Take care of yourself, Mr. Cross. Not every problem can be fixed with money." And with that, she climbed into her old truck and drove off, her taillights fading into the dusk. Nathaniel stood there long after she was gone, the sound of her words echoing in his mind. But what he didn't know, not yet, was that this was far from the last time he would see her. In fact, before the week was over, that same woman would walk into his life again, this time not as a stranger on a lonely road, but as the key to a truth he'd buried deep and hoped never to face. The next morning, Nathaniel Cross sat in his glass-walled office overlooking the city skyline, but his mind wasn't on his company's millions or the calls waiting on his desk. He kept seeing that woman's face, the mechanic with oil-stained hands and kind, steady eyes. The way she'd said, "Not every problem can be fixed with money." It haunted him. Her words had cracked something inside him, something he'd spent years reinforcing with arrogance and work. For the first time in a long time, he didn't feel invincible. He felt human. Later that week, his company was hosting a charity event at the Grand Plaza Hotel. It was an annual thing, meant to give back to the community, though everyone knew it was more about publicity than compassion. Nathaniel usually played his part perfectly. Shake hands, smile for cameras, make a donation large enough to impress the press. But that night, as he stepped out of his car under the bright hotel lights, something about it all felt hollow. The same people, the same laughter, the same masks. And then, halfway through the event, he saw her again. She was standing near the back of the hall holding a tray of champagne glasses. For a second, he thought he was imagining it. But no, it was her. The woman from the highway. The one who'd fixed his car and walked away without asking for a thing. She was wearing the same simple ring, her hair tied back, her posture proud despite the uniform she wore. Their eyes met across the room and she froze. For a moment, the noise of the crowd faded away, leaving only that strange electric silence between them. Nathaniel excused himself from a group of investors and made his way toward her. "Phew," he said softly, a mix of surprise and disbelief in his voice. "I didn't expect to see you here." She smiled faintly, glancing down at her tray. "I do a little bit of everything to keep the bills paid. Sometimes it's fixing cars, sometimes it's catering events." He looked at her for a long moment before saying, "You shouldn't be here serving people like them." She arched an eyebrow. "People like you mean?" He almost smiled. "Maybe." There was something honest about her that cut right through his usual defenses. "You saved me the other night," he said. "At least let me buy you dinner. Just to say thank you." But she shook her head. "You don't owe me anything, Mr. Cross." "Maybe not," he said, "but I owe myself a conversation with someone real." She studied him for a moment, then sighed. "Fine, one meal. But you're paying." They met the next evening at a small diner outside the city, the kind of place that didn't take reservations or care about who you were. The waitress knew her by name. "Hey, Maya," she said cheerfully, setting down 2 mugs of coffee. Nathaniel noticed the way people smiled at her, how naturally she fit into the world around her. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. She just existed, fully and freely. He envied that. As they ate, he found himself talking more than he had in years, about his father who'd built an empire but never a family, about his failed marriage, about how success had started to feel like a cage. Maya listened quietly, not judging, not interrupting, just listening. When he finally stopped, she said softly, "Maybe you've been chasing the wrong kind of wealth." He frowned. "What do you mean?" "Money builds walls," she said. "But love, It builds people, her words lingered. After dinner, he offered her a ride home. She hesitated but agreed. As they drove through quiet streets, she pointed out a small rundown building near the edge of town. "That's my garage," she said. "And upstairs. That's home." He looked at the flickering neon sign, the peeling paint, and somehow saw more warmth in that crumbling building than in his entire mansion. "You live there alone?" he asked. She was quiet for a moment. "Not exactly. My husband and I started that place together. When he died, I couldn't bring myself to leave. It's like he's still here in every bolt, every engine, every piece of rust I fix." Her voice cracked slightly, and Nathaniel felt a surge of empathy, something raw and unfamiliar. "And you kept going," he said softly. "Most people wouldn't have." She smiled faintly. "I promised him I would. We always said that no matter what, we'd keep helping people who couldn't afford big repair shops. Some people just need a hand to keep their lives moving." He stared at her, realizing how small his world had become. For years he'd been surrounded by people who wanted to take from him, but she, this woman with nothing, had only ever given. He wanted to help her somehow, but he also knew offering money would insult her. So instead, he showed up at her garage the next week with coffee and a quiet smile. "Need an assistant?" he asked. She laughed, thinking he was joking, until she saw he was serious. "You in that suit?" "I can roll up my sleeves," he said. And he did. Day after day he came back, learning how to fix engines, how to listen, how to live. The city's gossip pages whispered about the millionaire spending his days in a grease-stained shop, but Nathaniel didn't care. For the first time he felt alive. Weeks passed. One evening a storm rolled in. The power went out across town. Maya's garage was lit only by candles. She stood by the window, watching the rain streak down the glass. "You know," she said quietly, "you never asked why I wear this ring." Nathaniel looked up. "I didn't think it was my place," she smiled sadly. "It isn't just a reminder of him. It's a promise that I'll keep helping others no matter how broken they are." Her eyes met his. "Even if they don't realize they need fixing too." He took a slow step toward her. "And do you think I'm broken?" "I think," she whispered, "you're finally starting to heal." Lightning flashed. The room was silent, except for the sound of rain and the quiet beating of their hearts. He reached for her hand, not out of pity, not out of loneliness, but out of gratitude. "You changed me," he said simply. She squeezed his fingers gently. "And no, Nathaniel, you changed yourself. I just reminded you what kindness looks like." The storm faded. Dawn broke through the clouds, washing the city in gold. Nathaniel would go on to fund a community center in her late husband's name, a place where people could learn trades, fix cars, and fix lives. And every morning after, he stopped by her garage, not as a millionaire or a savior, but as a man who'd finally found peace. Because sometimes life doesn't give you what you think you want. It gives you the person you need to find your way home.